Hello! Happy holidays. I am here. It is Christmas Eve when I'm filming, so that's fine. I thought I would just do a big old book haul of all the books that I've bought in 2020. I was about to say 2019 because my brain is just trying to already edit this year out of existence, but it's 2020. I think right now there's actually quite a few interesting conversations going on around consumerism and booktube and stuff like that. So I just wanted to point you to Noelle's recent video where she talks about booktube and consumerism and like using your library and stuff like that. If you haven't seen it, I'll link it down below. One other thing I wanted to mention is that at this time, independent bookstores can really use our help. A lot of them are struggling a lot. I think the best way to support your local independent bookstore is to contact them and get books directly from the bookstore, however you can do that, whether that's curbside pickup or if they are sending out books themselves. I think the second best way is to use bookshop.org. Which is a website that is trying to become an Amazon competitor, and I really like that mission because down with Amazon. Basically, bookshop.org is an online retailer for books that will give a cut of their profits to independent bookstores. One reason why I like them a lot is they're very transparent in how they do that. So basically, if you go to bookshop.org and just order directly from the main website, 10% of that purchase will go into a big pool, which quarterly gets divided up and sent to all of their associated bookstores. If you want to support a specific bookstore, you can look for their storefront on bookshop.org. And if you shop through that specific storefront, 30% of the proceeds from that sale will be going directly to that independent bookstore. So that's in order to like maximize your support of your bookshops, you should definitely be trying to shop through their specific storefront rather than just through bookshop.org, the main page. If you don't have a local independent bookstore that you want to support, you can always support the bookshop at the end of the world, which I have their swag on. Can you see that? Anyways, so the bookshop at the end of the world is a storefront on bookshop.org that supports out-of-work booksellers that got laid off during the pandemic. So yeah, that's, you know, if your local bookstore, you can't support them in person and they don't have a bookshop.org storefront, this is another option for you. And yes, sorry, that's it. I'm gonna get to the book haul now. Throughout 2020, I ended up bringing in a total of 58 books. Not all of these I purchased, some of them were re-gifts, but it's still a lot of books in general. So I'm gonna split up this video into books that I've already read, nonfiction books, and fiction books. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this video in the first place is I want to be better at reading off my own shelves. And I was sort of hoping by showing you all of the books that I've purchased recently, you guys might be interested in buddy reading some of these with me. So if you see anything that you're interested in and you want to be buds and read them together, please let me know. But without further ado, I'm going to start talking about books. Okay, cool. Oh, so books. These are the books that I've read this year. In no particular order, and some of them I'm actually not quite done with. One of the books that I read in early quarantine was A Quartet in Autumn by Barbara Pym. I guess I cannot talk about all of these books, or this video is going to be forever and ever. But this was good. I liked Some Tamed Gazelle better, which is the other Barbara Pym I've read. Janet Malcolm's 41 False Starts is an essay collection. This is one of the ones I'm not actually done with yet, but I'm getting close. Of course, my bookmark is a pen, not a real bookmark, but you know, whatever. So this is mostly arts criticism and literature criticism, and she's a great writer. I've read Longing for Less, which this is one of those beautiful object books. Like, look at that cover. That's amazing. So this is basically a book on minimalism, but not in the sort of like aspirational lifestyle type minimalism, but minimalism as an arts movement, and was really interesting. We Have Always Lived in the Castle. I have talked about this extensively on BookTube. I read this with Milena this fall, and that was a lot of fun. Recursion by Blake Crouch. I read this very early on in quarantine, and that was a mood. I think I might have liked it better if I wasn't in that space. Tana French, The Likeness. I discovered Tana French this year. I had In the Woods already, and then I read it during early quarantine, and I was like... So I read the second one, and it was also very good. We Ride Upon Sticks by Quanberry. This was also very good. It's about like a high school field hockey team that maybe is dabbling in some dark magic in the 1980s. And it's very atmospheric, I guess. Jackson 1964, which I think is probably going to be my favorite book of the year. I still have like 40 pages left, but this is collected journalism from Calvin Trillin, who is a New Yorker reporter who's reported on the civil rights movement throughout the last 50 years. Yeah, this is a really amazing collection. Solutions and Other Problems by Ali Brosh, which I just talked about in my December reading vlog. I love Ali Brosh. This collection did not disappoint. Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This I bought because it was a cool movie recently, and I was like, I wonder how the book's different, and the book is very different, but it's still very interesting and cool. And I also found out that this is a trilogy, which I don't really know how that's going to work, but I'm very curious to find out. I might be actually buying the next two of these very soon because the library only has the audiobook, not the ebook, so I'm trying not to accumulate more books, but there may be more on the horizon. They Can't Kill Us Until They Kill Us by Hanif Abdurraqib. This is a collection of musical criticism and also personal essays, and sort of like poetry-ish. I really like essay collections because a lot of the time they sort of defy summary, and that's definitely the case with this one, but this was very good, and I read this over the course of like 2 or 3 months. How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell. This is a little bit cheating because I did reread this book this year, but I did not own it until after I reread it. So basically, this book came out in 2019 and I've read it twice and I decided to buy it. So that's how much I like this book, and you should also read it. Okay, Trick Mirror is another one that I read and then I bought. I was really excited about this collection coming out, so I did read it basically as soon as I could get a copy from the library, but I really don't like hardbacks that much, so I just waited until I could get a paperback copy of this before I bought it. I'm planning on rereading this at some point. I do like rereading nonfiction and especially essay collections and marking them up and stuff like that, so I'm very excited to have my own copy of this. I feel like I should have probably put this not in my read pile because I just started reading this one, but I think I will probably have read this by the time this video comes out. So Severance by Ling Ma is a book that I got like right before the beginning of the pandemic. Like, it was literally the book that I had queued when the virus hit New York, or when we knew the virus had hit New York, if we're being technical. I was like, I don't think I can deal with this right now, and I just started reading it, and yeah, I'm not entirely sure I can actually deal with this yet, but here we are. So that's all the books that I've read out of my books that I've hauled in 2020. Let's do fiction next. There are a lot of really fat books that I bought this year because that was going to be my thing in 2020. I was going to get over my fear of really thick ones. I don't know if I actually did that. Let's just get into it. Here's one I would really like to buddy read. Where am I? Cool. This is one I'd really like to buddy read, and that is Middlemarch. Sorry, I feel like the shininess makes it sort of difficult to see on camera, but Middlemarch by George Eliot. This is definitely one of the books that I feel like I should have read ages ago, but I haven't. If anybody wants to buddy read this one with me, this is a high priority book, so let me know. This is a short story collection by Richard Brautigan, Revenge of the Lawn. This one I've been a little bit too scared to pick up actually, because I got this at a used bookstore in New York, and when I went to check out, the bookseller like really did not want to give it to me. He was like, that's a first print edition, like you won't appreciate that. He didn't say that, but his attitude said that. Anyways, so he's gotten in my head, and I don't want to like break the spine or anything, because I'm like, oh, it's special, so I'll get to reading it at some point. I don't know. I really like Richard Brautigan, like, as a poet, so I wanted to try some of his short fiction, but someday. Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. I've been meaning to read this. I've heard that it's like a great adult fantasy with a lot of horror aspects, which is something that I've been like getting more into this year. The Three Body Problem by Cixin Liu. This is sci-fi that I know nothing about, but I have also been wanting to get more into sci-fi in general. It was definitely an impulse buy. The Fateful Place by Tana French, which is the third book in the Dublin Murder Squad series. I read the first two of those books this year and loved them. So, of course, I bought the third one. Except then I forgot that I bought the third one because I literally just put this book on hold from the library like a week and a half ago. And then I was pulling books off the shelf for this and I was like, oh. So, yes, I should read this. And then we have Ship Fever, stories by Andrea Barrett. And this is a short story collection of, it's like historical fiction short stories that I sort of impulse bought when I was in Western Massachusetts. I sort of want to get into short stories. I feel like this is the thing with book hauls. It's all aspirations of like what you want to be reading or feel like would be good to read, but then it doesn't necessarily actually reflect what you do read. I just got this one, so Interior Chinatown by Charles Yu. This one won the National Book Award this year, and I think it's sort of like a satire on old Hollywood, and it's written as a screenplay, I'm pretty sure. But that sounded really interesting to me, and I really like books that are funny. Like, I really like when awards are given to books that are, like, satirical rather than, like, melodramatic or what it normally goes for. No shade, but a little bit of shade to awards in general, but I'm excited about this one. Also, I just saw this was shortlisted for the Tournament of Books, which I'm really excited about. I feel like there's not a lot of crossover in between the Tournament of Books and BookTube, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me because Tournament of Books is like one of the best book things that happens on the internet. So, I don't know. I'm thinking about this. Maybe we could do something on BookTube for the Tournament of Books. I don't know if anybody else follows along with that. Let me know. I also got Convenience Store Woman by Chayka Murata. And this is something that my roommate left behind, so I didn't actually buy this. But I did read it, and it was very good. Oh, it should have been in my read pile. So that's unfortunate, but I was a fan. I was a really big fan. I think this was a 5-star. This is a 5-star. Another beautiful copy, The Odyssey. I was like very excited to get this translation because it had a lot of hype around it when it came out about 2 years ago. I am very, very interested in getting to read this one. I don't know if anybody else wants to make this a project, but if you want to read this with me, please let me know because I want to read this. Okay. Ow. I got Girl, Woman, Other, which won the Booker Prize last year. I know very little about the actual plot. I think it's like maybe not very plotty, but more of a character study. Yeah, I really want to read this. I'm like starting to get depressed about all of the books that I own that I want to read, but I am not reading. There are so many good books in the world. Okay. That's fine. Then we have James Baldwin, If Beale Street Could Talk. Even though James Baldwin is one of my favorite nonfiction writers, I've never read any of his fiction, which is a huge oversight on my part, so I really need to get to this. And I also want to see the movie, but I'm not gonna watch the movie before I read the book, so. Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. This was a bit of an impulse buy as well, but this is one of my college roommates' favorite books, so I was like, someday. I'm, again, getting more into creepy stuff, and I think this is pretty horrifying, if I know anything about Cormac McCarthy, so this is a beautiful copy. Okay, books are just such great objects also. I cannot understate the joy of just, like, pulling books off my shelves and like reorganizing and making piles of like, oh, I'm gonna read this soon, or like, oh, look at these beautiful books together and stuff like that. Like, I understand that that's actually, if we're being honest, a total waste of time, but you know, it's what gives me joy when I'm puttering around my apartment by myself. So yeah, Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin, sorry. This is a collection of short stories. I think they are very dreamlike and have some horror elements. Civil War Land in Bad Decline by George Saunders. I have read Lincoln with Bardo, but I haven't read any of George Saunders' short stories. So I thought this would be a good place to start. I'll just do these two together. I bought these collections of Russian folktales and Greek myths, and you know, these are more to flip through, but I thought I would just show them in this wrap-up because they have the Pantheon folktale covers. I just love them so much. Okay, that's it for fiction. We are already at 28 minutes, which is horrifying, because I have even more nonfiction than that. So let's do it. I don't think I can hold all of these at the same time. We're gonna try. This is bad news. Oh god. Okay. Ugh. Okay. Okay. Cool. So, I really don't want these to topple over and knock my computer off the pile of books that my computer is on. Basically, I foresee disaster. But these are the nonfiction books I bought this year. On top, we have The Bully Pulpit by Doris Kearns Goodwin. I know she's very famous. I'm sorry I don't know her name. This is a book that I had on my Goodreads TBR for a long time, and my mom sometimes will just see something on my Goodreads TBR and send me her copy, so this is my mom's copy. It's about Theodore Roosevelt, William Howard Taft, and the Golden Age of Journalism, which sounds really interesting. We have another book from my mom. She really likes Michael Lewis. She sent me The Undoing Project, and I should read this. Blood in the Water, which is about the Attica prison uprising, which is a bit of history that I've always wanted to know more about because we definitely did not cover it in school at all. I first heard about this book from the Stacks podcast. If you guys are looking for a really good book podcast, the Stacks is great. She talks a lot about nonfiction, which is my jam, so I definitely love it. And yeah, this is another one I bought because I was like, I'm gonna do fat books in 2020, which has not really happened, but someday. Oh my god. Okay. We then have Tom's River. I think this is about a chemical plant that contaminated a river and caused health problems in children in a town downstream. It's sort of about the chemical company and the town, but also about the class action lawsuit that the town brought against the chemical company. And yeah, it won the Pulitzer Prize, so my bet is it's pretty good. Then we have Busted in New York by Daryl Pinkney. Daryl Pinkney is Pinkney. Sorry. I do know his name. It's just the two N's is difficult for me. I don't know why. Basically, I have read some of Pinkney's work online, and I really like his essays in general, so I am looking forward to getting more into this. I think, yeah, technically I've read the first essay of this, but I haven't really been chugging through it, so. Whoop. Okay. We have The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. Another one I've been meaning to read forever. Another one that I discovered first from the Stacks. I think that this is just going to be a really fascinating book. It's a history of the Great Migration, but told through the stories of specific people. And I've heard it's just totally amazing. I'm worried that my expectations for this one are a little bit too high, but yeah, I don't know. I think that might be hard for this one because I've heard it's amazing. How to Write an Autobiographical Novel by Alexander Chee. I have not actually read any of Alexander Chee's novels, which is something I sometimes do where I'll like pick up a novelist's collection of essays before I actually read any of their work, which is maybe counterintuitive and not a great way to do it, but I just like essays so much better. But I've heard this is good, so I'm excited to read it. We have You Never Forget Your First by Alexis Coe. I actually recently heard Brian talking about this being one of his most underrated books of 2020, so I am really excited to get into this one. And also it's a signed copy, so that's really nice. This is a bookstore in Brooklyn that's, I think, quite famous, mainly due to Instagram, but it's a nice little local joint, I guess. Beyond being a biography of George Washington, I've heard it's a little bit more I don't know, tongue-in-cheek than a normal biography, and maybe a little bit more self-aware. So I hope that's true, and I'm excited to read it. We have Upstream by Mary Oliver. This is one of my childhood friends' favorite authors, or poets, I guess, but I bought some of her essays because, again, I love essays. We have The End of Policing by Alex S. Vitale, and this is about policing in the US and all of its many problems, and I think this is going to be really interesting in terms of, like, I've read long-form pieces about all the ways policing is terrible and stuff like that, but I think having it all of the research grouped together in one place for me to, like, really pick through is going to help me wrap my head around this problem more. So I'm excited to read this one. We have a Naomi Wolf, The End of America. This was definitely an impulse purchase, but I think it could be interesting. We have Kids These Days by Malcolm Harris. And honestly, there are 2 books in all of these books that I think I'm, like, unhauling, and I think this is one of them. Basically, I read the intro to this and realized that is not really the book that I thought it was going to be. So I might be getting rid of this soon. I really don't like the idea of doing unhauls on booktube. Like, it rubs me the wrong way. But yeah, if we're being totally honest. I also got At Home by George Vidal. So these are some of his collected essays, which I will peruse through. Into the Raging Sea by Rachel Slade. And this is a book about the sinking of El Faro. I heard a lot about this when it was first released, but didn't get around to picking up a copy until this year, mainly because I was waiting for the paperback, and then I sort of forgot about it, and then I was like, oh, this one. Anyways, so yeah, I thought that this would be really interesting because boating and big sea accidents isn't really something we think of as a modern day issue. Like, it seems like the Titanic was like the last boat that mattered or something. So yeah, I'm really interested to learn more about what happened in this certain situation. After Nature by Jedediah Purdy. The subtitle here is Politics for the Anthropocene. Anyways, I've heard that this is a really good book. I think it's sort of more on the academic side, but I've been wanting to get into it. Basically, it's about how we can change our politics and regulations to better deal with the environment going forward. I think a lot of books about the environment these days are honestly very depressing because I think many of us, like, even if we can't fully cognitize the extent of the issue in our day-to-day life, we do know, like, we know it's a huge issue. So reading about how big of an issue it is, it just super depresses me. But I think that this is a more solutions-oriented book, being like, okay, so we might be totally effed, but here are some ways that we could change policy in order to, like, maybe save ourselves. Furious Hours, Murder, Fraud, and the Last Trial of Harper Lee by Casey Sepp, who's a New Yorker reporter. So I've read some of her long-form journalism, and I really like her writing style. This is about Harper Lee as she researched a sort of horrific murder and trial in the South. I think she was looking to do something like Truman Capote in terms of In Cold Blood and doing a good true crime book, but she obviously never published that. So this is a story of Harper Lee and that murder trial, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be a really interesting interwoven story that I'm excited for. We have Shapes of Native Nonfiction, which is a collection of essays from various writers. I picked this up after I finished reading Braiding Sweetgrass because that book blew my socks off, and I really felt like I needed to be more proactive in trying to find Native voices that are writing really great nonfiction that I know I'll enjoy. So, The Mansion of Happiness by Jill Lepore, which is about philosophies of life and death, and it's Jill Lepore, and I love her long form, so I bought this book. I also bought this book because I'm procrastinating on getting to These Truths, which I realize is, like, probably the one that I should be reading, but intimidates me immensely. So, here we are. We have Voices from Chernobyl by Svetlana Alexievich. This is an oral history of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, and Alexievich won the Nobel Prize in 2015, and I've been meaning to read one of her works, so I bought this. We have Durangotypes, which is a collection of essays by Isaac Dennison. I bought Hood Feminism by Mickey Kendall, which is a collection of essays about feminism and intersectionality and, you know, what it's like to be Black in the feminist movement, basically. I'm pretty sure. You know, I heard great things about this. I feel like essay collections very rarely get any attention on BookTube, and this was definitely making the rounds this summer, so I'm very excited to get into this. This is the other one that I'm sort of thinking of unhauling. It's Against Everything. It's a great looking book. It's an essay collection. I loved the cover. I loved the title. I feel like Against Everything is definitely something I can get behind. I hadn't read any of this guy's writing online before, which is almost always a mistake when I'm buying an essay collection. I read the first essay. I'm really not a fan of his style / worldview. I might read another one. I might just drop it. We'll see. I did buy, after The Good Place finished, What We Owe Each Other by T.M. Scanlon. Am I ever actually gonna read this? Huge question mark. But basically, this is a philosophy book about contractualism, which is sort of like the underpinnings of the philosophy of The Good Place. This book is brought up again and again. It appears in many episodes, and is a integral plot point. I loved that show, so I was like, maybe I can read it and understand it, and I'll be a better informed and better person. But I think that this is more approachable than a lot of philosophy texts. I did sort of read the first 10 pages and think like, okay, I gotta approach this when I have way more energy than I do right now. So this is a someday. I got Samantha Irby's Wow No Thank You, which is a collection of her writing. I haven't actually I've read her blog a bit, but I haven't read any of her other books, so I'm excited to get into Irby. One Person, No Vote by Carol Anderson, which is a book that I was planning to read in the run-up to the election, but in the same way that a lot of people are, I was just sort of entirely overwhelmed this summer and this year. So I did not read this, but I do plan to. I think that, you know, with everything that's going on, it's obvious that voter suppression and access to our democratic process is something that we have to continue thinking about into the future. Like, this was not a one-off weirdo election. People have had their votes taken away from them for years. So putting it on the slow burn, like, educate yourself list. This is another one that my mom sent me, The Dinosaur Artist by Paige Williams. And this one is one that I bought such a long time ago. I really forget what it's about, and it is quite academic. I bought it because it was referenced in a different piece of nonfiction that I really loved, and I think it might have been Trick Mirror, or it might have been How to Do Nothing, or it might have been something else entirely. But basically, I think this is about how, like, obligatory happiness in the face of our economic situation since the 1980s is really terrible. Love the title. Love the cover. Like, what is this painting? I should read this one. Okay, we're done. Let me know if you've read any of these, how you liked them, if you would like to read any of them, if you would like to read any of them with me. Happy New Year. I'll see you guys in another video. Bye.